Envogen, what's the business do?
We're a small family engineering business. We specifically look after process instrumentation, which is the sensors that allow automated manufacturing or large-scale manufacturing. It's very, I don't know, no one knows what it is, but everyone's kind of dependent on it.
It's a bit like engine oil. You don't appreciate it till it's missing.
Yeah, well, I mean, to give some context, they'll build they'll 80 million on a power station. There might be 500,000 that goes to the instrumentation. But the only thing that allows you to run that power station and know that everything is safe and producing at the end of it are the sensors and the instrumentation. But it's thought about probably after the deadline of when it should be live. It's got a tiny little budget. It's been shoved in a container 2 years ago, and everyone's suddenly panicking. And there's no one out there who's really trained to do it properly.
So this is the boutique, the craftsmanship around kind of what you guys do.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. It's maybe not quite that language, but yeah, it's certainly very niche. It's niche within a niche. It's a tiny little industry, very insular.
So you've had this unique journey. You're second generation family business.
Yeah.
And you're second.
Yeah. It sounds a little weird to say raised
within the company.
Yes, very much slave labour since a child. Yeah.
So how did you get into the business then? When was the decision point that you were going to go straight into the business and you weren't going to go off and do your own thing and then come back?
I think I kind of always knew without realising I knew. I did go off and, as I say, in my teens, it was sort of a bit of engineering in my early teens of messing around with petrol remote control cars at like 12, racing them with my cousin and stuff like that. So playing with motors and stuff that it wasn't engineering then, but in reality that's what I was doing. I was always building something, designing something without realising it. And IT, because we were big nerds, again without really understanding what nerds were. And I ended up sort of going down the IT route because I was a teenager and you could be lazy and it was just fun. So that's what I did. Sadly, none of the adults in my life ever sort of gave me a clip round the ear and said, your dad runs an engineering business. You're good at this stuff. Like, you're smashing it in school with all your sciences, and like, why don't you go down this route and go and get an apprenticeship and, come back to the business 10 years later and all that. No one had that life talk with me. So as a naive, lazy teenager, it was football and computers. That was it. That's all I did for me teens. Then I went off to uni and did media. That was a joke. I ended up teaching on the course because I was doing some side stuff, doing websites for local businesses, and there was a website module, and the tutor never done anything like this before. It was a prototype course. So I was teaching web design. Another lad was teaching video editing because that's what he was doing for some local small businesses. And all they were teaching us was like media theory that was outdated from the 60s. And the whole point is it was called new media because it was about how all these digital technologies are completely changing the landscape. And I came out of that thinking, well, what a waste of 3 years. But I didn't have any debt, thankfully, because my dad supported me to go down that route. And I've basically been working in Matalan doing 40 hours in between university.
Yeah. And then you moved into the business?
Well, I didn't know what to do, and my dad just went, listen, come down here, get involved, help us out. So I went down, all the usual nonsense tasks when you've got, an older generation of people, they're not tech savvy, all this stuff is a bit alien to them all. So I was in there setting up databases on computers and accessing systems like ACT, and so they could all look up companies because the Yellow Pages was gone at this point, And I basically just helped them doing that and just never looked back, because then we started having more involvement with teams going out onto client sites, and somehow I ended up organising all that. Next thing I'm, running it, managing the team, and just sort of grown into it. It was just it was almost just like being busy, and next thing I look up 10 years here and I'm a manager over a team of people, and I'm like, oh, doing business now.
Why was that? I mean, that's interesting. That kind of playing with the RC cars to media degree, and you've got the technical engineering background. Was that kind of a conscious thing? Is this is where the money's going to be, or this is a growth industry? I'm going to go into this sort of stuff.
Just what I was enjoying. I had essentially role models on that side, because my cousin, who was older than me, He was really into it. He later got diagnosed with autism and that, but he was really like, he just got it. He understood it at a root level. He was able to, program and things like that, taught himself. So I had a role model there, and we spent a lot of time together. So I just kind of grafted that way. We'd be playing football, we'd be climbing trees, we'd be, damaging people's cars accidentally and all that nonsense that you do as a kid. And then we'd go back and play on computers. And that's what we did. And so it just drifted that way because it sounds daft, I had no engineering role model. My the half brothers
didn't have Fred Dibner.
No, my two brothers were in the family business, and my dad, my two half brothers, as they are, but we'd never sort of spoke like that. We're just brothers, and a half sister from my parents' first marriage, all 20 years older than me. So I was almost an only child, but not an only child.
But that's quite an adult environment to grow up in.
Yeah,
if you
well, they were all out, so I basically grew up just on my own. And obviously,
child.
my dad had a business and he worked all the time, so it was quite traditional in that sense. My mum had side jobs and she was a physio and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the bread was being won. It was being won well, so we lived well. Had lots of opportunity. And even though, like, my brothers are in the family business, one of them was an electrical engineer. No one sort of was like, you have you thought about this? Everyone just let me get on with it. Next thing, I'm in uni doing this joke of a course. And it's only later of like back and I think, what a waste. But at the same time, it wasn't, because I've still ended up getting here. I've just took a very scenic route.
And maybe the experience kind of taught you what not to do, or it's still...
I do kind of reflect that I've mostly just been observing people doing things wrong. Not through lack of drive and determination and good intent, just lack of whatever, being experts at subjects or asking the right questions and sort of looking and going, right, I've seen an awful lot of how to do it wrong. And that's why when I got to the period, when was it? Probably 7 years ago, I think it'd be getting to now. That's why I ended up doing the MBA, even though the timing was stupid and, first baby was about to be born and that. I have to go and do this because I need to go and learn how to do it right. I was getting really angry and frustrated just watching the same patterns being repeated by people who, for all of their drive and skills and experience, needed steering. And I was like, I want to go see how this is done on the other side of and I can't say it's particularly given me a huge amount more respect for it, but the experience was life-changing. Seeing the other side and being able to see the benefits of both, completely changed my... At the same time, becoming a father, which obviously,
that's
grew me up.
Yeah,
completely grew me up all at once. I've never really recovered from it, mental health-wise, stress-wise, marriage-wise. Nothing has recovered from it. But I can sit here now and say I became a man. And I learned a lot, and I understand a lot more about life now, and I'm a lot wiser. I can just get things now at a level that matters rather than at a superficial level.
That was the decisions or the frustration at work and the decisions to do the MBA kind of at the same time as little ones kind of start arriving. Do you think that was a conscious kind of thing?
No, I think it was a really stupid thing to do. Yeah, but no, it was. I think it was reflective of where I was.
Yeah,
I think it's just where I was.
Restless.
Really frustrated. And when I look back now, I think, you bloody idiot. I was so naive. I was, as you are when you look back at yourself. Look back and so naive. I thought I was so much further on this journey than I was. What an idiot you were. But at the same time, it is that restlessness, it's that frustration with what's come before you that makes you go and, that's progress, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's how we progress.
I mean, you've been even coming in as kind of the IT kid into the business beginning. That's quite transformative. That's tough. You've got a load of established folk who are a lot older than you. Say these systems work. We've never had a problem with this dot matrix printer and this job sheet we print off.
Yeah.
What you doing?
Times.
Yeah. What you doing this for?
And it was like everything. It was all just driven by sales. Grow the business. This opportunity. It wasn't structured and thought out. That's not what really exists in our business. It's a lot of people who have really got something about them, want to get stuff done and just do, and sort of deal with the turning it into something later. It's possibly the weakness of the business as much as it's the strength of the business.
You've been kind of outspoken on the skills piece and the challenges you guys have had. So how do you go about finding people that fit within the business? What are the challenges you're seeing? We've talking a lot at the moment about schools curriculums, the value degrees, how you make the system work for industry. What's your experience of onboarding
I'll start with a
people?
caveat that we're not very good at it. Yeah, we've made a lot of poor hires because often small business, you have to make do. You know, you have opportunity, you bring someone along who has a part of the skill set. You have to kind of make do, especially because we are really right at the acute end of like the skills shortage. Engineering in general is considered one of the areas, but where we are really at the acute end, even within the engineering industry. Apprenticeships, there was a guy who worked with us who was our engineering manager. He's probably about to turn 70 in the next year or so now. Sometimes he used to go on jobs for us 10 years ago, and he was the youngest guy.
Wow.
And he talks about his apprenticeship. He did like a 7-year apprenticeship before he was allowed to touch anything. And they used to hire like 500 people a year at the gas board in Manchester, and 2 were instrument people. Yeah, it was that specialist. And that all stopped probably now. I'm probably outdated in saying this. It was probably somewhere between 40 and 50 years ago. That just stopped. And it sort of got going again, I'm guessing around about 15, 20 years ago, judging by the age of the people who are coming through now. But it was more electrical, and then we try and expose you to instrumentation. There's no real instrument people out there anymore. Oh, sorry, there's very, very few. And those people are in high demand. There's no program really for training it. You can't go and get an apprenticeship in instrumentation. You go and do electrical engineering. It's key stage 1 of being an instrument person, because instrument person needs to know electrical, mechanical, chemical, IT
Process.
these days, process, where it all comes together. And that's why it's kind of witchcraft, because you've got to take all those things and figure out what's going on in the process to be of any value to people. But there's also the reality that most of our business is actually just going in calibrating things. There's the solution part of it where we repair them and we help customers who have got problems. Actually, most of the day work is just calibrating. So you can teach anyone who's got a practical background, I'll use the term engineering, but sort of that mechanical, electrical interest. You can teach anyone up to do that, but it's going to take an awful lot of investment and exposure and training of all different kinds, be it on the job, educational, engineering degrees, are a way of doing that, to get them up to one of these people who can sort of lead in that industry, who is a real expert. And there's lots of people who are kind of having a go, who are good, but they're not the people who were trained 45 years ago, who are true experts at it as a whole subject.
When your guy who was kind of in his 70s, when he learned, was there more kind of institutional knowledge, do you think? There was a lot more of you learn by osmosis, by being around. It's less of a...
they didn't touch anything for years and years and years, because you were just there absorbing it. And then you went out and, you can imagine starting, you're 20 years old or whatever, 23 years old, and then you're allowed to start your apprenticeship, was how he kind of, described it to us.
It's got to be a growth industry, though, the instrumentation side. If you think of, the sustainability stuff, the modern automotive stuff, if we're looking at bioreactors, if you're looking at kind of improving kind of the water industry, there's so much...
everything needs more sensors.
It needs
now
more sensors
and needs more data.
And more precision, and the margins are thinner, so yields and
that's where automation is being driven, is because they're trying to do that without people, so the instruments are becoming smarter, the software is becoming smarter.
Is that not
the
part
people
of
aren't.
apprenticeship agenda then? Why,
Don't know. I'm not.
Do you think it works better for you guys kind of setting your own curriculum and the apprenticeship program?
Yeah, the ideal person for us is someone who's been and done a few years, either finished an electrical apprenticeship in something related, or who's sort of gone and done a couple of years of college. The university path doesn't work for us. It does for the big companies in the industry who recruit graduates in and then teach them, but it doesn't work for us. We're a bit too at the gritty end of things, and they're not necessarily the right people. They've not got the right mentality. It's also our company culture. As I say, our company culture is very rough and ready.
Do you think that's something that would appeal to a lot of young people at the moment? Everything's quite sterile, everything's quite systemised and processed. Do we need more of that, of companies that we'll have a go, we'll figure it out, we'll get there,
Yes, but I don't think the young people realise that, because they're just not. Again, young people have to be exposed to it to know whether it's for them. And there's just this huge gap between two people who are smart enough to do this, and then steering them into the right channels.
Makes you wonder as well, as a national kind of, labour shortage, national kind of productivity and output thing, if you had, an extra year or two of people in the workforce, what that would immediately do for output.
Yeah, and the skill shortages it would solve quite relatively quickly. But then you've got to have all the training in place, and again, we're in a funny place. No one will just take experience anymore. We're seeing the end of a generation now where it was just because they've been doing it for 20 years was okay. Now you've got to have the pieces of paper. It's another challenge in our business. We've got some incredibly talented people who work for us. Yes, they are rogues and, chaos and all the rest of it. They turn up to these sites surrounded by people who are paperworked up to the eyeballs, who have really responsible jobs, who are really top engineers in demanding jobs, and they don't know a fraction of what some of our lads are turning up and teaching them, because how could they? There's no one teaching it. They just learnt it working for us, and they happen to be incredibly good at it. How do you sort of bridge the gap between all this? How do you? I don't know. It's a really complicated mess in terms of paperwork is everything. We can't send some of these guys on certain jobs because they haven't got the pieces of paper, and they will be the biggest experts on that site for the entire time they're there. They're not allowed. Haven't got the pieces of paper. What a joke.
What's the kind of within the business? What's the process you're going through then to capture that institutional knowledge, capture that kind of collective know-how, and bring, as much as it's difficult to bring younger generations in or new people in. You're looking for skills, or you're looking for attributes in new hires rather than qualifications.
Sorry, I'm smiling away because the simple answer is we're not. We know we should be, like the whole industry. One of the things that got spoken in the last session of Novel, and it was Andrew from Heap and Partners, who I've since been to see, was asking about how this could be used for training. And one of the companies on the course, that's terrible of me, I've forgotten the name, they specialise in using virtual reality and stuff for training. So we, of course, have all sort of seen a common goal there. No one's done it. It's all being lost. I've been sat in our business for the last 10 years where we've been going, we're going to lose all these senior people. And now we're in the middle of losing them. There's one gone. There's another one going or down in his hours at the end of this year. We've got people in the office who are all past retirement age. There's 22 of us in the business, and there is not a cat and mouse chance that 10 of those people are still going to be working in 3 to 5 years, taking hundreds of years of experience and, shall we say, their unique, their sort of generational getting stuff done attitude, and not taking any fuss and speaking plainly, generally not being too PC and all the rest of it. They're going to take all that with them, and we're going to be left with a load of people who it's all been a bit too soft and fluffy for, and who's are they going to get in the trenches and get dirty? And the answer is no, because it's not what this generation's particularly known for, and the younger generation are even less in terms of what we do. Service work, working away, long antisocial hours, winging it. Quite frankly, everyone's winging it. You turn up to the site and the experts don't know what they're doing because there's just too much to know in our game. Everyone's winging it. Everyone's unprepared. You just got to get in and find a workable solution, and then move on to the next problem. And that's not what we're seeing as a culture of people who are out there. And I haven't been there for a long time, and I include myself in that. Everything was far too comfortable for me going through my teens in the 90s, where the country was booming. Everyone went to university. Well, they were studying nonsense, but they all went to university. And our standard of living has been high ever since. We're all getting upset because poverty is not having super fast broadband and Nike trainers and all that nonsense. We've just lost touch with what built all these industries, and I don't know how we get back to it, but we're trying. We recruit people who play around with motorbikes is the main one in our place. If you don't play around with a motorbike, you're probably not going to get recruited, because it shows that you've got that certain kind of mentality. You're not afraid of just figuring it out.
Yeah.
Because you're fixing a 50-year-old motorbike where there's no parts out there anymore. It's rusting to death. It breaks down every time you go on it. Right, you're the kind of person we need in here because you'll solve problems and you'll work with basic tools and you'll figure it out working together. That's our current recruitment strategy.
That's kind of good advice to government skills agenda is you know.
Give everyone a motorbike.
Yeah.
And no parts. They'll figure it out.
But there's more people need to hear that. More kind of young people need to hear that. More families need to hear that. Actually, it's not just about the qualifications. It's you're looking for a set of skills and values and attributes and interests, and you'd recognise somebody that you'll fit in.
It's how we backwards engineer that though, because how do you get those people? And then get them the qualifications. At the moment, the business suffers if we want to do that. We've got 2 of our lads who want to go through the HNC programs because one of them's done an apprenticeship but wants to go on and do more. The other one never got a formal apprenticeship. And so he wants to go to HNC to essentially backfill his technical knowledge, but also because he wants to be going somewhere. He doesn't want the same qualification of a 16-year-old. He's in his early 40s. How do you do it? Well, we're looking at them doing night school. Well, I've done night school in the extreme doing my MBA. It's brutal. And it also limits his options that he can't go away and work on site and earn more money and get loads of overtime.
Right.
And he's got other challenges as well. He's got a disabled daughter and things like that. Where's the support to get him where he needs to be in his career? Where's the support for the small business to offset that? That's a conversation that's come up lots during Novel is there's just the money's not there to support the businesses to do it. The businesses have to take the brunt of it. The universities are funded for their bit of it. The businesses aren't funded. I'm sat here now. This is costing my business money because I'm sat here just because I believe this is an important message. No one's paying for this. No one's paying for anything that we do.
Is it direct funding to the business? That's the model that works. And what's a model for?
I think it would help, but I don't know
is-
how you control it because that would be very easy to abuse.
Yeah.
I go to every seminar you could because I'm earning money doing nothing, and it's just wasting time and taxpayers' money. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not an expert. I've not educated myself enough on how all the, we're here doing innovation. I'm very naive to how the innovation landscape looks. I'm on the programme because I want to see something done about it, and I'll shout at everyone who I believe is not taking any action. That's why Jim's invited me here. Not because I'm an expert. So I don't know what the answer to it all is, but I know there's people out there who do. There's people whose life work this is. I just don't know how you connect it all up. I have ideas about the school system. I'm a little more familiar with it, having gone through it, as everybody does. I don't understand why things like what was the TA is now obviously the reserves aren't more involved. Things like, is it the Duke of Edinburgh programme?
Yeah, Duke
the
of Edinburgh Wars,
Scouts, and all these other groups that I can't keep up with the names of them all now. Beavers and all kinds of them. Why aren't all these kind of utilised to support the school system? Because they're all off doing things that are real life skills, but you have to engage with them outside. They're scrounging for funding from the government and private individuals, and they can offer things that the schools can't. So why aren't the schools regionally or whatever paired up? Can you imagine having a kid who struggles in school with the academic side of it, but gets the chance to go and work on fixing, military vehicles to learn some basic engineering, and then the following weekend is volunteering at Party in the Park as helping steer people to where the toilets are and where the food are, or doing medical skills, for when people take ill and things, and shadowing medical professionals and all the life skills that they could learn. Yet instead they're going to be in school struggling because it's just not the right environment for them. All those things are already set up. There's got to be something for industry that's the same. Universities are one answer. They're not the answer in what we do. They are in our industry, designing the products and all the things that go on, designing plants, and I can go on forever and ever about how useless the people are at do that, and how the simple naiveties that they have, building them wrong and not thinking about the future, and etc., because too many financial constraints are in place. But how do you get people who are at the grassroots actually working as operators, as maintenance technicians and stuff? How can you get them ending up in the decision making?
So the experts into
even the leaders in businesses, because very few of them do it because there's kind of no pathway unless they force the agenda themselves. And businesses do it when they see that that person is the right person to sit in the seat. But where's the government support to go and find all these people who, in reality, are often people who've fallen through the net in terms of leadership? You know, we're here talking about leadership. Leadership is very different to being good at the job. Many businesses make the mistake of promoting the person who is best at the job, who then can't lead the team, and it all unravels, and that department 5 years later is a nightmare and not functioning properly. How do you bridge all this gap? But even further back, taking the people who've fallen between the cracks, who never had the opportunity to go to college or university, but are working in I don't know, the local garage, but could be the person who's the next best Formula One engineer. How do you bridge that gap? Because we don't. That's all based on, in reality, luck and whether your family drive you in that direction. It's based on your parents' knowledge. Well, who taught the parents how the system works? You can look at the same analogy in football. You know, the 1% who make it aren't necessarily the best 1%. They're the people who were exposed to the system and got recruited to it, but there could be the best players who have ever played the game, never played the game. Yeah, because they never got took into the system because there was no way of capturing them. Countries like Australia, I studied PE in college and that was the hardest course I've ever done in my life because you had to learn so much. You know, countries like Australia 30 years ago started analysing children as young as 4 for their basic physical attributes and taking them into academies. There's a reason why they dominate in so many sports. America did the same. Wow. You can apply the same to industry. People only become exposed to industry when they leave school at 16. You can identify the right kids when they're playing with blocks in school.
So you're a big advocate for kind of vocational really early. We're talking about primary school. And
from primary school,
I mean, is that more of you think that a case of more of a localised sort of educational strategy, localised education plan? We say, look, these are the businesses in town, these are the businesses in the area, these are the opportunities.
I think it needs to stay general at that point. Anyone can go anywhere these days. It's really easy, isn't it? You know, you can go anywhere in the world. So yeah, I'd imagine that needs to play a part, but I'd maybe say that needs to be a bit older. You know, as you're starting to look at which kids might be suitable for universities. We spoke about universities. Universities reach now is a joke. The things that they're teaching, there's a place for universities, and it is teaching academic subjects. Get out of the rest of it, please, and let people learn hands-on and then work the way up. You know, which people are going to steer towards academic and come in at that level, which people are going to go in vocational. Yes, some of it should be local. You know, we have certain, if you take this region, you know, there's going to be the car industry, there's going to be the maritime industry, healthcare is going to be a massive one. And I said, but there's also general stuff because it's not that far away. You've got nuclear in Manchester and Cumbria.
Just had the announcements, was kind of recording this, the SMR reactors for Rolls-Royce.
Yeah, all that is all just outside the region. You can commute there in no time at all. You know, you've got pharmaceutical industry down here, which is, you know, massive. That is medical and engineering, right at the elite level. It's right here. What is being done about it? I don't know, but I haven't seen anyone going on a pharmaceutical engineering course. You have to go to university, rightfully, to be on one side of it. But who's teaching the engineers? I don't know. It's probably going on. But is there actual any specialism there? No. Who are the kids they're actually getting in? Are they just getting in all the kids who went to university? Well, surely you want the practical people actually building it, not the people who've been told how to do it, the people who've been doing it in the garage with the mum and dad repairing old cars and, you know, whatever, putting pagodas up in the back garden. And these are the practical skills. They're just so neglected.
They're increasingly becoming lost in the general population as people, you know, buy stuff in or pay for services in or get somebody to do it. There's less.
But they're also taught by the family. It's like that's still done by the community. Yeah, so like, your uncle can do this. Go and oh yeah, I saw him doing that and he helped me. And but if it's academic or shouldn't be academic but is done by the academic institutes, then there's this whole government structure. And there's plans coming from London. It's all nonsense. It's pie in the sky. They're just looking at spreadsheets and stuff like that. Where's the actual structure for vocational from a young age? Because the teachers know as well. Teachers are damn good at knowing.
That's a kind of, so much of what we've got is systemised. It's taking responsibility away from the individual. So there's a system. It's a bit like modern cars. You've got collision avoidance. You've got
you can't drive the car anymore. Yeah.
So the system will cushion you to a certain extent. So is that putting more power in the hands of teachers, in the hands of parents, saying, you know?
No, I mean, they're already at breaking point. I think it's the resource behind it. I think it is things like the reserves. The military are amazing at this, and we're the best in the world if you believe the hype. In our military, why aren't they helping to coordinate this? Because they're not being asked. I'm sure you could ask them and turn around and say, we've got loads of stuff that needs fixing. How good is the military at training, engineering, electronics, leadership?
Building communities, bringing people from different backgrounds together and saying, right, you're a team now.
And you don't need to be clever to do well in the military.
It's not your qualifications.
You need to be prepared to get stuck in. Guess what industry needs? A lot of people who get stuck in. So capture those people. Don't put them into the military, may I add. Use the infrastructure and the lessons. Don't, for God's sake, put them in. I'm not advocating for
national service.
National service, although to a point. But I don't believe military national service. But again, take these people, and after they turn 16, take them on a gap year, and they can go skiing with the military. They can go work in a hospital. They can go and expose them to all this and teach them about life in their community. Go and host events. Go and work in the care home. Go and I don't know what whatever. All these things that the country is short of. Get these kids doing this as part of a gap year and coordinate it through these industries like the military, the Scouts, the Duke of Edinburgh. They've got phenomenal infrastructure. They're all repeating the same thing. Imagine if you could harness all that and start exposing kids to this at 8 or whatever, when they start being analysed in the school system to realise, listen, these people are showing really good at maths and sciences, and that these people not so much. So let's not fight that in the system. Let's harness that in the system. Yeah, let's create the system around seeing what are people showing that they're good at and steer them in that direction. And if that means making some big, brave decisions about schooling, then let's do it. But I can't do that, and that's not going to come from novel. But you can take the same kind of principles in leadership and local business innovation and stuff, and let's make some brave decisions. Let's get a pot of money, which is going to be the sticking point in all this. Get a pot of money and just let it be experimented with to see what works for this region and what then starts to generate, specifically in manufacturing, what supports those industries. It's the same thing. Instead of sort of fettling at the edges, let's make a big, brave decision. Someone take it on their shoulders and say, we're doing it, and have it loosely regulated.
Why do you think government's gone kind of the direction it has? Is something you frequently hear is, government doesn't know what business wants or what industry needs. Now, in my experience, that's really difficult to kind of buy, because you guys are, the guys I deal with, you're all very vocal. And you've been quite honest. You don't know what the solution is, but you can pretty well diagnose a problem.
It's all part of the same systemic change, from what I see. Career politicians never used to be career politicians. Yeah. They used to be prominent local leaders who probably had businesses and things like that. They're not anymore the career politicians. They sit in their own little bubble. And I know you've got things in the Lords, which again I'm not overly sort of educated on, but where they try and bring in expert groups and all the rest of it, they're talking to the wrong people. I like the fact that the government's trying to decentralise certain things, but they're decentralising it and then putting all these strings attached to it because they've got the same criteria to meet as they did when it was centralised. So the money can't go where it actually needs to go. And it gets wasted, but it gets wasted in a way that's accounted for. Well, how about just letting people who are on the front line waste it? Try and do something. Obviously with some governance and control. Give it to entrepreneurs, give it to business communities with experts leading it, and pay those people damn well so that they're comparable to being in industry, so the experts can legitimately step out and say they're going to run an innovation program. Because it's not a side project they're doing, or they're doing because they're now really wealthy and they don't know what to do with the time. Actually, it's a viable job instead of having their own business.
This is working for talking to you. This is the dichotomy with you. You, on one hand, you're a massive free marketeer, but on the other hand, you've got this massive sense of social responsibility and kind of national pride. And
there has to be, doesn't it? Because otherwise, we'd all be sat here about how the money gets wasted. There's got to be control over that, but at the same time, you've got to have far more risk. I've grown up with a father running a business who is, to his benefit and to his detriment, entirely fearless. He has no fear of any risk. He will put everything on the line every time.
Wow.
So I see that and I go, that's a bit stupid, isn't it? But he's still here running the business 42 years later because he finds a way. And I see lots of other people, the same friends who've set up businesses, even sole traders and stuff like that. Everything is on the line every day for people who run businesses unless they become really successful, which most businesses never do. Yeah, there needs to be something that bridges the gap.
Yeah.
My reason why I'm interested in novel is not because I know anything about innovation, not because I claim to be a great leader or anything like that, or know the answers. I just want to make sure that someone bridges that gap and bridges it in a way that I look at and go, that's a person who I would trust to make hard decisions and be brave, and they've got funding behind them. And if that's what Novel creates in this city, it's a success. And if not, I'll be shouting at you at the next meeting. And poor Jim will wish he never invited me. Yeah, that's the only reason I'm here, is because I believe the social responsibility is to make sure that the money gets put into the right people who will risk it in the right way. And the results will be good or bad, but that's life, isn't it?
Is that target? I mean, is that target driven? There's got to be. I mean, I like the idea of an accountability piece. Is
Yeah.
My old boss used to have the expression of a single ringable neck for every project.
Yeah.
Is
I'm an
bump.
advocate of that. Yeah, someone has to stand up and
sometimes
accountability.
you win, sometimes you lose. As long as your wins outrun your losses.
Short answer is yes. There has to be targets and some kind of governance. I don't know what it is. I think I've been exposed to some people who know the answers to that as we've gone through the novel program. It's about lessons learned and how they can possibly be measured for the lessons learned to have a better chance of success. But when you sat there talking about the headline figures and 90% failure rate, and I think that's absolute nonsense because I think it's far higher than that in reality. Of actually, that makes a difference. It might be a success because it ticked a few boxes on an investment fund or whatever. It actually makes a difference. It's far less. So what are you actually expecting? What are you expecting to get from it if you've got these figures like created 5 jobs, returned its investments and all the rest of it, if you're expecting a 90+% failure rate? There has to be something that allows the failure but maybe looks at the lessons learned. And the lessons learned have to be, I don't know how you make them tangible, but they have to be then demonstrated. So you're going to be looking retrospectively all the time. This money was spent. This money appears to have produced nothing, but the team of people behind it went on and did this, which was maybe did a bit better, but then they did this, and this made a difference. So how do you govern over that long period of time? How do you stop it becoming the same old boys club when the same people, as one of the words that was used that stuck with me was, you need veterans of innovation, because they have to be learning. If you bring new people in every time, you repeat the same stupid mistakes. So there needs to be veterans, but it's how they're used. How are they maybe guiding the next generation? How are they pulling the strings, so to speak, without they can be involved, but maybe there comes a point where you have to say, no, there's no more funding going to you, but we need you in here to guide and mentor. That needs to be a proper high-paid job, because otherwise someone in industry will pay them that money. So it's about the money coming down and literally creating these things, but a high turnover of people, because it's innovation. There should be lots and lots of young people, some more experienced people, 10 years on their positioning, you're on contract for a year to do some mentoring, we'll review. And then this way of analysing back their performance in a realistic setting, because 95% failure is probably quite successful in innovation. So how I don't know. As I say, I'm not the expert, but there needs to be something that meets the reality of what innovation is and the risk that everyone's taking. The system needs to match that. Otherwise, we're just kidding ourselves. That was one of the things that we said in the last session of Novel. It has to be able to be seen in my community, or it never happened. So how do you do that? Well, that comes from people having good jobs and the standard of the living areas going up. It comes from people putting infrastructure in the right places. It comes from not being derelict buildings anymore because people were brave enough to do something about it. Homelessness, being, gangs of kids on streets. These are all visible signs of systems not working. I want them gone, to the point where I don't even recognise them as things. Then I am seeing it without seeing it.
Yeah.
Because there's a pathway for people. They're going somewhere. The communities are improving. Controversial ones. I want to see more foreign people, because that means that people are coming to the area. Experts are coming to the area. But I want to see them integrated into it, not coming in because they're fleeing conflict and in bare bones jobs. I want to see them coming in as experts.
You want to attract the best and the brightest from around the world.
As well as we have to do our part with the others. But again, not them being turned up and put into ghettos, doing something about that, sorting social housing, creating a career path for people who turn up here with nothing, maybe haven't had the basic schooling we've had, and how do you bring them in? What a great way of doing it if you've got things like the military involved and all the skills that they can offer, and these people don't have the foundational skills. And neither do most people who go into the military at 16. It's because they're dropouts in an awful lot of cases. And look at what they do and what they turn these people into. So utilise that skill set to help immigration, and it's all joined up.
Yeah.
This is the problem with the complexity, is it's all joined up. You have to pick something and throw tons of resource at it, and then hope that it has an impact, steer it so it has maximum impact. We're talking about the impeller now. Which way do you do it? Do you throw it in at the root level, or do you throw it in at the top level, and then it drags the right people in and stuff like that.
You're also talking about that fail fast thing as well. Is get rid of the bad ideas quickly and then have another go. But it's not a mark against the individual. It's a mark against that. That didn't work. Have another go. Let's see what you've got.
The best people fail many times before they succeed. So just accept it. But again, you've got to change the narrative, then, haven't you? Show the failures. Yeah. When was the last time you went to an innovation thing and someone told you all about their failures? And by the way, will you then give me £500,000 to fail the next time? But that's the reality.
Because I'm an expert in knowing not what to do.
I've learned 5 hard lessons that you haven't learned yet. Yeah. So can we do something together and take my hard lessons and your enthusiasm and this person's money, and let's go and have another go at it. You need some of the fringe stuff as well. I get that, because otherwise you'd never realise there was an opportunity there. But it's got to be much more focused on actually making results. There is so many problems in this country and in the world and in this region and all the rest of it. You aren't short of things to try and improve. Yeah. So why are we working on things that are nonsense? It's got to have its place, but it's got to be,
How do you improve that dialogue? So it is rare for a company like yourselves, someone like yourself, to engage in those kind of innovation programs and those government structural programs. Yeah. So we did well to get you. For me, it's speaking your language. What's your advice if you're sitting in Downing Street, if you're sitting in a cabinet meeting, or you're sitting in kind of devolved command authority? Somebody says, "Great, we love what you're saying. Why haven't you been more engaged in the debate?" Now I know that's because you're busy, you've got a business to run, but you've also
I don't know it's happening.
Right.
I don't know it's happening.
That's a total failure in marketing.
And I don't know, for instance, I don't know what the conversations are around engineering that are happening in London with the politicians, but they are happening. There's some really great and accomplished people down there who are no doubt putting strategies together and all the rest of it, but they never get realised, and no one sort of sees the roadmap. It's just not, no one's connecting it up. You can bring that right the way back to a business. The leaders sit in a room and say, these are our values. And then you go and ask the person who works in the business. I don't know. They walk past them on the wall every day because that's all they are, is a sticker on the wall and something that's talked about at management meetings or when you want government grants. They're not lived. It's how we get it lived, how people can see right the way through, how you could see someone who was a local rogue who might end up advising the government and seeing how they did this, that and the other wrong. They went and did that. Found something that suited them. Maybe they did a business, or they were part of something that went on, and before you know it, they ended up right at the top, sharing their story with the people who made the decisions, but also that the people making the decisions were people who went on the same journey before them, or even with them. Get younger people into this decision making. I'm sat there being spoken to by AI experts who are half my age, who are phenomenally successful and advising all these people, but the people they're advising 20 years older than me, don't have a clue. Why are they making the decisions? Let the 20-year-old make the decision. With governments and structure, but if they're the damn expert, make the decision. Lead. Step up and lead and be trusted.
So you're not put off by age, you value the expertise.
If the person's the right person, then they will do the job. I work with, and I've worked with and met many people who are old people who are useless. Yeah? They might have lots of experience, but they're just not what they're doing where they are. They're just never going to do what's needed. And that's all contextual. Yeah. I don't mean they're useless people entirely, but I mean, they might be in a leadership position or something, but they're just like, I don't want to have a battle. I don't. Everything's doing well, isn't it? And it's like there's no innovation. There's no thought about what 20 years later it's going to look like, because that's just not who they are. They're just not the right fit for that. And then I meet 20-year-old people who are literally changing the world. No one will listen to them because they're just a kid. So they have to go off and do it themselves, you know, and they set up big billion-dollar companies and live in this world that I frankly don't understand. But why weren't they harnessed for the region or the country's benefit? It's because there was no mechanism for doing that, and they went off and earned insane monies and created this empire all on their own through sheer force of will and drive. Imagine if those people were brought in and were able to make some difference in the country. There's literally got no idea how you would do it, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's this amalgamation of the real business world into politics and decision making, and it's all about risk
and capital.
Yeah, and people being let go. Yeah, because the thing that I've learned all too late is it's as much about what you say no to as you say yes to in life. Everyone's busy fools because they just simply won't say no. It's quite a British thing as well, I think.
Yeah, it's true.
We just won't say no, and that's the reason why we're not as good at this as other people. But it's about saying no. So when you get these politicians who go to the top and you just look and go, well, hang on, that person's department isn't doing very well, or they've not realised the changes in the manifesto after 2 years. No. Which means goodbye. Yeah? And when they screw up, there's real consequences. Like, you screwed up, that cost people's lives. If you were a CEO, you're going to jail. Why are you just handing your resignation in? Have some accountability in politics. It would make a difference. It would change the kind of people who go into politics. Yeah? Because the people who run their own business are generally very dogged, determined people. And it's a huge strain on them, even though everyone sees the nice side of it. Yeah. I spoke about all the Range Rovers in the car park.
I love your Range Rover analogy as kind of a barometer of...
You've not made it until you've got a Range Rover, yeah. And, you know... And
on lease.
It's on lease, though, yeah. That's what people don't see, is it's on lease. And if the business has 3 bad months, it's gone, as might be their house, yeah. And all the stress that they've got, that's going on with it. And you don't know it until you're in the hot seat. I don't truly know it. It's not my business.
Yeah.
I've been exposed to it all my life, and I see it, but I'm not in it. I'm not in the frying pan. I stood on the edge of the frying pan asking to get in, stupidly enough. But that's not actually me. Imagine if these people were making the decisions, people who were exposed to risk, who were prepared to do it, who were accountable. It changes everything. So there's a big political movement. Let's be serious. That's not going to happen. Novel's never going to make that happen. That's a cultural thing. We have to be brave. I've never heard a politician turn around and say, I'm going to shake up the system in this country. They just fluff around at the edges. I'm going to move a bit of money here. I'm going to do that.
I'm not going to mention Liz Truss.
Yeah, actually making fundamental change and rebuilding or knocking down the political system is what would be needed to truly make this successful. What can we do in the meantime? Well, we can just kind of push that way, can't we, and try and drive change. The politics side of it, I think we have to park. It's too big. It's a big cultural revolution. But what can we do locally? Well, we can get our local politicians to put a pool of money and literally say, go and burn it. It might only be a small pot of money compared to what's currently called innovation. We spoke, actually, a lot of it is just business support money under innovation, because to tick some stupid government box, it's got to be innovation, create a job and all this nonsense. Actually, just take some of it in this city and just go, whatever, there is 10 million quid. We're going to get some really smart people who have put themselves forward, no doubt sort of linked to all this innovation ecosystem. We're going to put them on some damn good salaries so that they can do this and drive it. We're going to give them a remit of creating this movement in the city. There's one thing the Liverpool region's good at, it's a social movement. Yeah, let's create this
everywhere
movement.
Apart from sort of innovation and business support for some reason.
You look at things like healthcare and social responsibility in the city is massive. Yes, there's far too many people complaining about it and not doing anything. So give them a mechanism to do it. Put some money. Let them innovate. Let them change the social system. Let them change the business. The business ecosystems, and just literally look at some local problems, because that's what the impeller approach needs. Look at some local problems. You will have plenty of them. Retaining engineering talent, AI and sort of tech we need drawing into the area, dealing with mental health and the NHS and things in general. Take those big wins, schooling, education. Maybe let's try just in this region connecting the local reserves with the local scouts and just see if they can get a program going, put some money behind it, whatever it is. Let's try it here and give some people who are really brave and really proven some money and a bit of time and say, go see what you can do. And all you have to produce is learn some lessons. See what would work.
That's quite radical. For
Yeah.
somebody talking about an SME, you would have thought it's efficiency, target, output, make sure you're getting value for money.
It's not the way our business runs.
What you're saying is have a go and
just have a
be
go.
accountable if you cock it up or you're negligent, but have a go and see where we
absolutely,
get to.
and just prove it can work. So again, it's an innovation within an innovation. Would we like to change the government system and all the rest of it, and the universities, and get them all into this national structure that's going to compete with countries like America? And yeah, it'd be great. It's not going to happen anytime soon because you've got far too many powerful, institutionalised people you've got to unseat and no mechanism to do it unless you go rioting on the streets or something. That's not the way to do it. Let's just start here, put a small pot of money and say, see what you can do. Now, if you get that 10 million and it makes enormous social change or creates some brilliant innovation in the city, everyone will come looking for it. How did you do that? Who were the people involved? But you've got their attention. Now you can have a go. You might get to make some change and then do it again. Get the next people coming. Let's just have a go. It's tiny amounts of money when you look at what's washing round in government and university. And you put that in the hands of the right people here and give them a remit to do nothing other than try. Yeah. Look at the infrastructure in the NHS. I was exposed to it on my MBA, and I'm meeting a few people after we've finished this who were part of that programme. The amazing things these people were doing in the NHS. How good this country is at healthcare, but how completely hindered it is by money, levels of management and cronies who won't make brave decisions. And that's exactly what you then replicate out over.
Yeah.
When people do things that are radical in the NHS, they end up becoming the next pathways for your treatment care.
Yeah.
Once they've been sterilised, made to cost 10 times as much money, created a load of jobs that aren't needed. But ultimately, the results they gained become the next treatment pathways. They were radical people at the time who were shunned, but the results spoke for themselves.
You see that across all sectors as the most cantankerous,
Yeah.
hard to work with people are probably the ones who say, look, I'm right, I just believe it, and now I'm going to prove it.
Most of them are probably leaving the region because there's other people who will listen and back them, or they'll go private completely and you won't know where they are.
That's a scary cultural kind of take, that is people leave because we have this sort of British idea of conformist or not rocking the boat.
Bureaucratic, you can't get money for anything unless it's conventional, all that kind of stuff. So they go to America, don't they? Because you can be more of a rebel and that in America, and someone will throw money at you. Give it a go.
All that stuff you talked about, of kind of tenacity and having a go, that ties back to what you kind of described your dad's grit. Of your dad just keeps on going.
He won't.
You see that as
you
see that from different sides. In others, you see it as the entrepreneurship thing, but in your dad, you just saw it as bloody hell, you're pig-headed and will not quit.
Absolutely pig-headed and fiercely determined. Yeah, and they're his overriding qualities. Even now, I don't think he would class himself as someone who is educated on how business works. He's not a people person. He's very much a lone wolf. But people have always gravitated to him. He's always, he talks about when he was a kid, he was the youngest in the street, but he was a leader of the gang. Got him into a lot of trouble that I won't put out into the worldwide web. But got him into a lot of trouble and that. But he was just always just saw an opportunity and just went for it. Had no idea what he was doing. Still doesn't. He just keep going and doing it, and he can sniff opportunity from over the horizon. He's no good at bringing it together. He has to get the right people around him for that, and that's where he's always struggled, which is difficult because he's also not a great people person in reality. He's sort of always jumping to the next big idea and things like that. But that's how he's been here for 42 years, and as I say, he is fearless. We are not a well-run financial company. We're not structured targets, and none of those things exist in our business. We all turn up, we have a go, we do our best. When things get tough, we work harder. That's the reality of what goes on in our business. But you can also learn from that. We need more of that right now.
Do you get stressed? Does that stress
hugely?
You? Right.
Hugely. My mental health is a disaster. But I also, it's a catch-22. I love it. Absolutely love it. But yes, hugely stressed, hugely worried, often about things that I have no control over, which is absolutely stupid because my mum's brought me up from day one. My mum was religious and she always said the serenity prayer about controlling what you can control. I've got it tattooed across my body and all the rest of it, and I still try and get involved in things that I have no control over, spread myself far too thin, don't sleep, make stupid decisions, and then go again, and then bring myself back to grounded, and then try again. But I think I observed that I never make the same mistake twice. That was one thing that I wanted to observe. One of my big frustrations with what I've experienced growing up, business, life in general, observation. I'm very observant. My issue is actually getting really into the nitty gritty and getting started with things, but I'm very observant and see good examples. Is watching people just make the same mistake over and over and over, whether it's drinking in the pub, whether it's running a business, whether it's governments doing stupid things, whatever it is. And so that's something I work really, really hard, is not to repeat my mistakes, never make the same mistake twice. And that's what I'm trying to do in the business, try and learn from our mistakes and put in place systems and processes and things that we don't do it again. It's not working that well, but trying.
I think you said the plans go out the window as soon as
every hour.
Every
hour in our business, because it's service. You make the plan, the phone rings, the plan's just changed.
But you're still on a path. You guys have been on a path. You've got a direction forward.
That's tricky. No, we haven't. We don't. My dad hasn't really been involved in the running of the business for probably approaching 12 years. So we haven't got what you would call a vision or a strategy or anything like that. And obviously, as he's got older, he's stepped further and further back. He's now letting myself and two other people sort of run the business day to day, but we're not really at the point where we can set the strategy. So the business is right where we all know it shouldn't be. It hasn't got a drive, a direction, a strategy. Right now, it's more sort of a survival mentality is the strategy, because we're losing hugely experienced people. We're struggling to recruit. The industry's shifting. There's just an awful lot going on. We are extremely tight financially, so even though you want to do all these things, they're just not gonna happen. So we're very much in what would be a pretty horrible situation. It is a pretty horrible situation. That's where the stress comes from. So essentially, our innovation is the business surviving and repositioning itself. Ours is the business surviving and still being here in 10 years' time, hopefully having learned a load of lessons, being more mature, and able. My big thing is business all being about people, is being able to provide opportunity for the people in the business and all those around it, whoever that is, whether that's their families, whether that's the local employable people, the rogues we can bring in and be the next generation, whatever they are. That's where I want the business to be. That's what my innovation goal is to be a more streamlined, modern business that's benefiting the community and that around us and ourselves, and be successful. Maybe have a Range Rover, just because we can.
Range Rover Sport, Vogue, full fat Range Rover.
I hate them. I have a pickup truck all day, or a van converted into a camper. But yes, it would be nice to have success in the traditional measures, but it's not what I get a kick from. It's not what my dad's ever got a kick from, which is why he isn't rich. He's had opportunities and ventures. He did an amazing project in Saudi, and it all fell through because the fit wasn't there, and it damaged the business over here. And things like this. So he's not driven by money. I'm not driven by money. I want a business to be proud of. But right now we have to survive and come out the other side as a business we can be proud of.
Is that in itself an innovation? That kind of culture and set of values is excellence in what you do.
It is, and it's a luxury as well. Don't kid yourself that it's a luxury. Most small businesses just simply can't do this because you've got to pay the bills. And most people running small businesses have never been taught these things and don't get 40 years of foundation to try and build upon.
40 years of apprenticeship.
Yeah. So it's a very fortunate position. But I'm also confident enough now that if something happens, we'll figure out a way out of it. And it might just take longer to get there, but somehow I'll get there.
This is why I keep coming back to you guys is it's like fine watchmaking as craftsmen. It's like, don't worry, we've got the skills to do this. Whatever problem comes across the bench, we'll do it, and it'll be a nice piece of work, and the customer will be happy. That's innovative in itself. Where do you want to be when you're 83? Where do you want the business to be? What do you?
Have nothing to do with me. Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping for two steps in my career. One is taking over the family business and making it something we can be proud of, and hopefully that comes with being a commercial success, and therefore, we can build some wealth and create opportunity for family and all the other people around us, and share that out very generously as a role model that my dad's given me. He hasn't got two pennies to rub together, but the things me and the people around me and our family have done are just mind-blowing. Things you shouldn't have access to at such a small working class life. I want to replicate that, but ideally in a more constructive way that it builds something that can be sustained. And that would sort of be the second part of the career. One is to be success at running a business and prove I can do it, because I've not proven to anyone I can do it, because I'm not doing it. I don't own the business. I'm just a manager in the business, albeit, with a lot of responsibility and part of the family, but I'm just a manager. So prove I can do business and then go out and make a difference. And whether that is, for instance, engaging in programs, whether it's teaching in universities, whether it's, I don't know, going off wild and trying to get the reserves to speak to the schools and actually do some of these things I'm complaining against. I'd like to end up in a position where I can make a difference behind the scenes, just pulling strings and pulling experts together and say, look at that. Now, when I walk down the street, I can see, there's engineering being taught in the local schools.
Yeah.
On the high street, there's a facility for whatever, that maybe pulls in various resources that are difficult for the more impoverished people to access, or people English isn't first language to access in really poor communities. I'd love to do a project in SCEM to actually make a difference and teach people what's outside the boundaries.
What's the self-care bit with family, job responsibility, 22 livelihoods, in the company that are on your shoulders? What's the, how do you decompress?
I don't. That's where I am. That's my personal biggest challenge. I've got to find a way of taking some of the burden off myself that I don't think anyone even necessarily realises I carry. They don't realise that I'm essentially doing like 3 roles within the business per se. I'm certainly not doing any of them very well, which is the output that they see and go, what's he doing all day? They don't necessarily realise how much I care and how much this burdens me, that this has to be a success. It won't necessarily be for me. I like to think I get something from it, but it's not necessarily for me. It's just because I feel like it's what you should do. It's what I want my legacy to be.
Old-fashioned values, sense of service and responsibility.
Yeah. I have had them put very well into me by the people who have brought me up. My dad as an example, but other people as well, friends, dads, and mums and grandparents. And I've had amazing examples around me, and I've learnt the lessons. I've now got to put them into action, and I feel like everything's been all too comfortable in my life, and I'm starting quite late. But I'm prepared to be uncomfortable now. I've been for quite some time.
It's a bizarre, it's a time of life thing that it's kids are growing, and
we spoke earlier, didn't we? We're becoming men.
Yeah,
because you finally got the responsibility and you realise that you have to do something with your life. That's definitely kicked in. It kind of irritates me a lot that it's took me this long to kind of join all the dots up, because I'm pretty smart and I'm a good observer. I've just been very naive and comfortable, and now I'm like, no, I can't be comfortable anymore. I've got to do something. I've got to pick my battles. I'm going to lose a lot in this stake, in this process. I know I'm going to lose a lot, because you can't do everything. The things I don't prioritise are going to suffer, and I've already suffered. So, it's going to be a pretty painful journey, but I hope come out of it in a number of years' time. It's about being proud. I want to be proud of what I've done as a business. I want to be proud of what I've done with my family. And I want to be sort of confident that I can go out and make a difference, and then go and do it, and hopefully be proud of that. That's my big drive, which isn't very glamorous. It's very personal.
I don't think it is. I think that would resonate with a lot of people. And it is that time of life, being in a personal and a professional environment where you're responsible and you're not finished yet. And the energy's there and the drive's there, and
just about.
And you want, but you want you want everybody. You want your kids. You want the people in the business to see the commitment and the effort. This is role model time now.
I was going to say the word you were leading to there was role model. Yeah, I want to be a role model of, and, you know, and again I look at it and I see role models like my dad. I spend all my time criticising him, but he's a wonderful role model. I just have the luxury of being able to criticise him because I'm his son.
If anyone else did, you'd flatten them.
No, not at all. To be fair, no. If it's fair, then you take it on the chin. As you might have noticed, I don't really fluff things up. I just say it as it is, and if it offends you, sorry, but you know, I believed it was the truth. I don't lie, and I say it as I see it, and try and be nice. But sometimes things need saying, and I've had to learn that lesson the hard way because I've been all too nice, and I've suffered all too much for it, and you know,
and it doesn't get you anywhere.
Doesn't get me anywhere. Doesn't get the people you're leading anywhere, and I've had to learn. I've still got a long way to go with that. A long way at being a better people manager, as I'm no doubt if you speak to anyone in the company, they'll happily tell you all about how I'm not a great manager at all.
But if they see you busting a gut, if they understand that
I don't know if they
intention,
necessarily see it because they don't necessarily understand what I'm doing. It's all the fundamental things. You know, the sayings, it's lonely at the top and all the rest of that stuff. I sympathise with that because it is, and quite frankly, no one cares. No one cares because people can only deal with the tangible results that are coming from it. We spoke earlier when we were talking about family. One of the hardest things about becoming a father is that no one cares anymore. You're bottom of the pile. You're there to support everybody else, and you relish in it. But damn, it's hard sometimes. Sometimes you just want someone to say, "Well done."
It's a bizarre thing to articulate to a younger man. It's a bloody privilege to have no money and no time and be exhausted, but it's the best privilege in the world.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, and I think you start to appreciate everything else around you, and what other people have gone through, and you start to understand it. But it's so hard, and I just look at it the same. It's really hard being a dad. It's really hard being a leader in a small business, and no one cares. Because it's not their job to care. You took this on. You knew what you were taking on. And so just get on with it. Just get on with it. But try and look after yourself in the process and take everyone with you. Don't end up being resentful of the process because you took this on. Yeah.
Good point to end on. Nick, thank you very much.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.